Hey folks, welcome back to our Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Runaljod, the sound of the runes. Runaljod is brought to you by Timbo Games. It's for 1 to 4 players, ages 13 and up, and games range anywhere from 60 to 120 minutes. In Runaljod, you will be taking on the role of one of 4 Viking heroes, trying to defeat a series of mythological creatures released into the world by who knows what means. And it is up to you to engage in battle using your special runes as you move through this world, trying to claim victory and glory on your way to Valhalla. So this is a cooperative based game. You will all win together or you will all lose together as you journey and quest to defeat these mythological creatures. Now, in this game, I had a small sampling of the first quest, or sample quest, I should say, where we took on the snow giant. But they're gonna have tons of different quests and things you can do in this game, but you are going up against these creatures trying to defeat them cooperatively. And what makes this game unique is that you're using a series of runes to activate your special abilities. Now, it's not just using the runes, but you have to take them and roll them out to see what becomes available. All right, so let's jump in and take a little bit of a closer look. So there are 4 characters that you can tap into, and I'm sure there's going to be even more possibilities as the campaign goes on. But the main 4 characters have their own unique player boards, as well as their own set of skill cards and their specific set of starting items. So those are all things you're going to gather and put in place. Now, the things on the board that are important, especially on the far left over here, is the fact that you have built-in defense, which is a 2. So you can get cards and things and items that enhance your defense, but everyone has, basically that's 2 for your starting character. And then across the top, these are slots that you're going to be activating a lot, like attacking and movement. Those are the basics, but your skills are going to give you even more things that you can do on your turn for attacks and movement. And again, the way those are going to work is that you're going to have runes. Everyone starts with 4 runes specific to that character. And these runes are what is going to allow you to activate your skills or your special actions that you can perform on your turn. And depending how these roll, you really are rolling these runes to see what's available. And especially to start the game, you're going to have 4 runes. You're going to roll all 4 of them. And anything that comes up face value is available to use on this first turn. Anything that's face down is going to go to your destiny area of the board for your next turn. Now, other things on the board that are worth note, you've got slots for obviously your armor, for your footwear, headgear, your weapons or shields, and specific items. Now, across the bottom, you have glory points and basically money that allows you to buy more skills from your skill deck. And of course, you're tracking your health throughout the game. Now, you don't actually die in this game per se, but you do get knocked down and you have to have help. One of the special actions from your fellow players is to help you and bandage your wounds, so to say, to bring you back. Now, everyone, depending on the scenario, potentially you might have different starting skill points available. But in the basic one that I played, I had 2 starting skill points that you can tap into for these skill cards. Now, there's a series of cards here that do all kinds of things that allow you to move and attack or things like that. And depending on how much you want to spend on a card, there are cards that have 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, and you start with 2. So I actually picked a couple that were bigger cards to start with to try out. And there's a lot of difference in how you can mobilize these different skills to help you throughout the game. And since it is super cooperative, it's fantastic for everyone to kind of partake in that and say, oh, if I have this ability, it's really going to help out the group. But these skill cards act just like the slots on your board. You have to have the runes in order to activate that skill card. Now, of course, along with these player boards and the runes and all your cards, there's these amazing miniatures for your characters as well as all the enemies. They really did do a nice job. Even in the prototype, these are fantastic. And specifically this snow giant, wow, this is just a really cool figure. Now, the thing about enemies in general, though, is that they have an AI deck that you'll be tapping into as they activate, which is another nice way the enemy's attacks basically mix up, because they're not always going to go after the same character every round in a particular order. So it does change the flow of the game, which is pretty nice. And they all have their abilities on their cards, and combat in this game, which we'll get to, is super straightforward and works really smooth. It's super fast as you move through. And carnage, expect in this game there will be carnage. It is tons of back and forth. And at many points it feels very much like a big skirmish game. But you do have those quest cards you're going to be tacking into. Now let's take a look at the Altar of the Gods. Now on this altar is where you'll find your exploration deck, which I've been calling quest cards. This exploration deck is what will lead you through the game basically, and as every card comes up, starting with the first card, it will set up your scenario and what is next. Now, the way cards rotate through on the exploration deck is that as you battle it out and finish off an area, you'll move off the board as one of your possible actions, which then will trigger another card revealing what board is set up next with what enemies. And based on the player count will also dictate very clearly on the card what gets set up where. And after all the players have grabbed all their particular runes, then you'll grab 4 more runes and put them in the middle of the timer on the Altar of the Gods. This timer is one of the ways that you can lose the game. Again, it is scenario dependent, but if your timer moves all the way around, you're going to lose. The only way to win is to complete the scenario before the time runs out. Also, it's worth noting that in the rulebook, in the final version, there will be a series of campaign and different game modes that you'll be able to play and help you set up the game. Now, in my small sampling, I just had this one. Again, we went up against the Snow Giant. But I'm looking forward to seeing what other adventures that they create. Now, a couple other cards worth mentioning. You have an exploration deck, you have obviously more items you can find, and you have an event deck. An event deck might trigger based on what's happening with the exploration deck, but you never know, it depends on your particular campaign. And you have dice, obviously, for combat, and you have different tokens and status tokens for being frozen or stunned, things of that nature. So yes, again, this is a cooperative game, and as you play each round of the game, your actions, every player must finish the action that they're performing, but you can do things out of order. There's no specific order of who goes first or second or third. So that's, again, with any good cooperative, you really do work together and using the best action and skills based on what's needed for that particular moment in the game. So let me give you a brief overlook of the game. So for every round, there are 5 phases to the hero's turn. The first one being the preparation phase. This is where you're going to recover cards that may have been used previously. There are cards that may force you to tap them or turn them, things like that. And then if you have any gold to spend on new skills, this is the time to do that if you so choose to. Then we move to the Destiny phase, and this is what's really cool. So if it's the very first round of the game, you're going to roll all your runes and see what you get. Now, beyond that, any runes that aren't in the Destiny corner of the board, you'll gather those up and roll them. They may have been used in a previous round, right? So what you're looking for, though, again, is you're looking for runes that are face up, hopefully, and if you get any runes on their side, those count, I mean, literally landing on their side, those count as face up as well, but they also give you special abilities. Next up is the status phase, and this is where if you're potentially, you have got stunned or you've been frozen, you're taking wounds, you're losing blood, you can interact and try to remove those tokens from you, but really, it's pretty simple. You have a box on your character board, and this is your interact boxes with the double hands. And what happens here is that you can use, in a particular case like being stunned, you can use 2 runes from your Destiny pool to counteract that stun token. You'll place them into that particular slot and then remove the stun token from your board before we move to the action phase. The first 2 actions we're taking a look at is movement and attack. So movement, if you look at the top of your player board, there's a couple slots. You put runes in them and you can move those many spots. You'll see there's dots out in the playing field. You'll move along those dots. And typical movement rules apply here. You can't move through enemies. You need to move around. And there's also line of sight, like with any game like this, that you need to be aware of. So positioning yourself properly is key. And then we have attack. And again, you got to place runes in the attack. Now, if you attack twice, there is a negative effect because you're tired, I guess, and you're going to lose 1 dice in the attack. But if you have skills, you might activate a skill instead of doing a basic attack, which might give you even more abilities and things. But that's typically going to be more expensive to do the skill, causing you to place a specific rune, as well as losing additional runes maybe. But when you attack, it's very straightforward. You're going to look at your weapon, and it's going to dictate which dice you roll, either the white, red, black, whatever that weapon calls for, and it'll show how many you roll. And you're looking for daggers, you're looking for axes or battle axes. So the difference is that a dagger is 1 point of damage, the axe is 2, and the battle axe is 3. And then there's this special symbol, and that will activate an additional special ability of your weapon, potentially giving you even more damage you can perform. And then as you perform that damage on an enemy, you'll look at the enemy's card, and they have some basic defense as well. So if you do like 6 damage, potentially it's going to knock 2 or more off of that as you hit that enemy, and you'll calculate their damage by putting tokens next to that figure. And once that figure is destroyed, you'll remove it from the board. And so that's the basics of combat. And obviously it gets more involved as you're using skills, as you're using more advanced weapons and things like that. But the thing to note is that it really is that simple. You roll the dice, you calculate, you move on. It moves really fast. And as you defeat those enemies, then this is where you're going to get the glory points. And for every 5 glory points that you receive, you're going to get another blue cube on a skill point, which I was calling gold. Anyway, you get these skill points, and you can only have a maximum of 3, so at every preparation phase, you want to spend those points, reset your glory points, and kill more creatures to get more points so you can get better skills throughout the game. Now, we briefly talked about activating skills. This is another action you can perform. And again, you have to have a specific rune in a lot of cases to activate this, along with additional runes that may cost you as well. So those are very precious and big powerhouse abilities when you might want to save until you really need them at the most. But it does change up how you play each time because you could have any number of different skills and combinations, which is pretty cool. And then you have the interact with your environment action, which is you finding search tokens, maybe trading stuff with another player, or moving off the board, which is exploring. Now, like I said before, you can also help a hero recover, which is kind of like bandaging their wounds. You have a spiritual check on your board that will show what dice you need to roll. And the hero that you're trying to heal will take all the runes in their destiny area and roll them. For every rune that's face up, they're going to get 2 health back. And if they get any that are sideways, standing on their side, they're going to get 3 health. And if you get the special symbol on the dice that you rolled, they'll get us some additional health as well. Now, it's important to note that also, if a hero was KO'd and they stand back up, this is another way for the time tracker to move. And remember, as that moves ever closer to the other end, that's one of the ways to lose the game. And another action you might perform in your turn is activating the God's runes. Now, in order to do this, you're going to have one of your runes that have landed sideways in order to do this. Now, there's all kinds of powers here that you could tap into. So if we look at the lightning bolt, that's Thor's lightning, obviously. So you have a couple of choices. The targeted enemy could lose 2 points of damage, or you could have every enemy on your tile lose 1 health. Now, again, there's all kinds of abilities and powers you can tap into here, but they require that your rune has landed in a special way in order to do that. And you also have the ability, if you had 2 runes that landed that way, you could actually grab one of these runes from the altar and add it to your particular pool. And then the hero's final phase is all about flipping over any runes that are in your destiny area that happen to be face down. You'll flip them face up. And then we move to the enemy's turn. And the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to advance the clock ever closer to the end. And then you check to see if you need to pull an event. You know, there are many exploration cards that do bad things. You need to look at that as well. But if there isn't currently an exploration card that happens to be in play, you're going to pull an event card and do what it says. And then it's all about the enemies attacking. And that's where this AI deck comes into play, which is fantastic. And every time you pull this card, you're going to move through the enemies that happen to be in play and activate as it calls for. And in some cases, it may show an order of how the enemies are going to attack. But this card is very straightforward and explicit, and each of these AI cards will change up how the enemy behaves every round. And when the enemy attacks, it works just like the heroes attacking. All the stats are here available on the enemy's card, and you just roll the dice and calculate the damage. And so the heroes win the game if all the requirements of the scenario are met, but they lose if the time runs out or any of the defeat conditions of the scenario happen. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, that said, this game has a lot going on, and more than we showed here. I just wanted to give you some of the highlights, some of the top level, and I really liked how these runes work. Oh, it was so fun. Rolling those, it was just a different way of activating and doing those actions. And it's not like standard dice, right? And having them actually land on their side is that like eureka moment when you're playing. And the particular scenario that they gave us to play with the snow giant was pretty cool. And I really liked the fact, I didn't even mention, that there's a set of specific special AI cards related to the big boss figures. So it really was an interesting challenge, which we did not succeed. The giant took us out. But really, folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando, in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching the Dice Tower.